Hey guys, with the 1.3 update approaching and the likely meta shift to a Geo-based team due to the upcoming Zhongli and Geo elemental buffs, most of you will no doubt be looking at the free copy of Ningguang. You've probably been told that she's an exceptionally strong burst DPS, but can Ningguang really be your new DPS? In this video, I'll attempt to break down some of her strengths and weaknesses and give you my personal thoughts and an overall review of her as a character. I'll also give you a comparison to some of the other characters that I've been maining. Let's begin. To give you guys a quick answer, yes, she can be your DPS, even at Constellation 0. This comes with a rather big if, however. That is, if you're willing to learn. In my opinion, Ningguang is not for everyone, as her playstyle relies on specific sets of actions that need to be done in order to be optimal, which is part of her learning curve as she needs some getting used to. When it comes to the fun factor, however, Ningguang is definitely a fun character to play. Ningguang's strengths mainly come from her synergistic kit. She has some of the most highly synergistic kit among many of Genshin's characters, and that helps to define her role. If we take a look at her entire kit, notice that all her skills are highly complement each other, including her Ascension passive 1 and 2, to bring a playstyle that lets you combo everything together. Her highest damage multiplier lies in her charge attack, the main source of damage for most Catalyst users. She boasts one of the highest charge attack multipliers among all the currently available characters, and her Ascension passive allows her to use charge attacks without consuming stamina as long as she has at least one Star Jade, which means Ningguang can pretty much continuously use her charge attack after every normal attack that connects, as that is how you generate Star Jades. Of course, you've probably seen her Elemental Burst as well. Although the multiplier is rather low, this multiplier applies to each individual gem. Using this skill does require positioning, as they will shatter when colliding with any objects or walls, including her own Jade Screen and other Geo constructs. Her Elemental Burst deals a lot of damage on its own, but it is further enhanced when combining it with the Jade Screen's usage. More on this later. The Jade Screen itself has very good damage, and it can be used to clear packs of enemies before obtaining Ningguang's Constellation 1. Now that I've pretty much summarized her strengths, I'll remind you once again that Ningguang is probably a DPS for you, but only if you're willing to learn. Ningguang is only optimal when you combine and use her skills together, which often requires you to track and plan out what you're doing, similar to other main DPS such as Klee, and not to mention is very squishy and easy to kill, making mistakes quite costly in high-level content. Sometimes, she can be very annoying to play, especially when you can use easier characters like Ganyu or deal with enemies with a single press of a button with high multiplier elemental burst characters such as Zhongli. There is a lot of payoff if you do keep the DPS rotation in mind though, which on paper is not too difficult, but you'll still have to practice on the execution. I'll boil it down to the most simplistic method I've been using. Every time you attack, you create Star Jades that float around Ningguang. Using a charge attack when you have a Star Jade will deal additional damage and use no stamina at all, so it is always better to use your charge attacks when you have Star Jades, with the most optimal rotation being one charge attack after every attack. This rotation is your bread and butter, but you don't really have to do the optimal rotation. It's good enough as long as you use a charge attack when you see 3 Jades circling Ningguang. As for when to use your skills, you can usually use the Jade Screen at the beginning of the fight and pass through it for a 12% Geo damage bonus on all your attacks. If your Ningguang is at least Constellation 2, you can pretty much use it every 6 seconds, weaving it into your charge attack rotations, but you'll always want to make sure to always keep this timer in mind. Then use your Elemental Burst within 10 seconds of passing through the Jade Screen, as the buff wears off after 10 seconds, but you can always refresh the duration of the buff by passing through the Jade Screen again. You can continue to repeat this entire rotation throughout the fight, and that's her typical combo. There's quite a few things to remember, but once you get used to it, it really isn't too bad. In more difficult boss fights or the Abyss, a new Ningguang player will likely forget parts of the rotation, bringing down her overall output. So if you find that your Ningguang isn't doing as much as other people, this is likely the reason why. Outside of 5-star weapons, constellations, and artifacts of course. Animation cancelling your attacks into charge attacks, and then animation cancelling that charge attack can also bump up your damage. And yes, Ningguang is completely viable even at C0. Her C1 is not really a big deal when you can use the Jade screen to clear packs of mobs. Her C2 is probably the most value for a damage spike due to pretty much effectively dropping the Jade screen to a 6-second cooldown when managed correctly. For builds, in the Geo meta and in general, we'll probably want to pair up with Zhongli or at the very least Noelle even if she's C0. So we'll most likely want to run 4-piece Retracing Bolide, especially since it also improves shield strength for crystallized shields as well. The increased shield strength should help to reduce the risk of her dying. For the highest DPS purposes, and those of you who would rather run Bennett or Xingqiu and other non-shield supports, you can use 2-piece Archaic Petra and then couple with either the 2-piece Gladiator or the 2-piece Noblesse. Neither of these setups I found are particularly much better than the Retracing Bolide, and given how difficult it can be to farm for the perfect Gladiator set, I think Retracing Bolide would be the way to go, if nothing else for simplicity's sake. Either way, the Retracing Bolide set is sure to be a very popular set once the Geo meta actually arrives in Genshin Impact, so there's actually no harm in farming for them. And as for weapons, you'd want either attack percent or crit substats on your weapons, so she's unfortunately not quite free to play in that aspect. But if you didn't get lucky with any 5-star catalyst in the gacha, I'd recommend getting either the Solar Pearl from the Battle Pass or crafting the new 4-star catalyst that you can find in Dragonspine. I'm personally using Wit Sith because this is what I have for now. All in all guys, Ningguang can be your new DPS, even at C0. She takes some getting used to, but once you get in the flow, she's really fun to play and she can cover for secondary DPS, or even as a burst support. And if you're a fan of Catalyst users, or the Catalyst gameplay in general, then Ningguang will probably be extremely satisfying to play. Thank you guys for watching, and if you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.